Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
Today, we're going through the latest earnings from Tata Consultancy Services,
T-Class.
TCS, right?
Yeah.
For the second quarter of 2025.
All right.
We've got their full earnings transcripts,
Yeah.
investor presentations, all that good stuff.
A whole 9 yards.
Yeah. So it seems like they're trying to figure out how to deal with, well, everyone's trying to figure out how to deal with this, all the geopolitical stuff going on.
There's a lot of uncertainty, right?
Yeah. And a potential economic slowdown.
Yeah.
And of course, AI.
All at the same time.
Which is a big one, yeah.
That's a lot.
So they use the words resilience and challenges a lot in their transcript.
Mm-hmm.
And they reported 7.6% year-over-year revenue growth in rupees, but that translates to a much smaller 5.5% growth in constant currency.
Right.
So can you break down what is constant currency for those of us who don't follow this every day?
Yeah, so it's basically a way to take the effect of currency changes out of the equation.
When you're comparing.
So like if the dollar gets stronger or weaker against the rupee or...
Exactly.
Right.
Because, they operate in so many different countries around the world.
Yeah.
So you want to be able to see how they're actually doing in terms of their business growth.
Got it. So a different way to look at it.
Exactly.
Their CFO, Samir Seksaria, actually called the results a mixed bag.
Mm-hmm.
What did he mean by that?
Well, there are some areas that are doing really well, like BFSI.
Banking and financial services.
Yeah, exactly. And then their growth markets are, they're just on fire, especially India.
Yeah, they were, what, up over 95%?
Something like that. Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, that's massive.
It's crazy. What's driving that?
A few things, I think. India's got a really young population who are really comfortable with technology.
Right.
And their digital economy is just booming.
Okay.
And on top of that, you've got the government that's really pushing for technological advancement. So TCS is in the right place at the right time.
They're definitely well positioned to take advantage of all of that.
It seems like it, yeah.
Yeah.
Are there other markets that are doing as well?
Not quite as well as India, but, those growth markets are definitely promising for the long term.
Okay.
Even if they're not, churning out huge profits just yet.
Right.
But North America actually declined, and that's their biggest market.
Wow. By how much?
By 2.1%.
That's a lot. What's going on there?
Well, it seems like their life sciences sector is having a bit of a rough patch.
Okay.
And they actually mentioned a specific client, a big one in that sector, that scaled back a big transformation project.
Ouch.
Yeah, not great.
No, that's never good when you lose a big client like that.
Right.
But, it's understandable in this environment.
Yeah, everybody's being a little bit cautious right now with the economy the way it is.
Yeah, nobody wants to overspend and then, yeah.
Nobody wants to be caught holding the bag if things go south.
Yeah, exactly. But does that hurt their profitability then?
Well, their operating margin did shrink by, by 0.6% or 60 basis points.
60 basis points, yeah. Why such a big dip?
Well, a couple things are going on.
Oh.
First of all, they've got this enormous network transformation project going on with BSNL.
Right, and that's that telecom company in India.
Exactly. Yeah, huge telecom company in India. And we're talking about a project that involves something like 100,000 sites.
Oh, wow. So that's a huge project.
Yeah, it's massive.
And is it profitable? Sometimes those huge projects.
Yeah, sometimes those huge projects can be more trouble than they're worth.
Right, exactly.
But, this one is bringing in a lot of revenue.
Okay.
It's just that the margins are, let's just say they're a little thin at the moment.
Okay.
Because there are so many third-party expenses associated with it.
Got it. So high expenses are cutting into their profits even though they're bringing in a lot of revenue.
Exactly.
Interesting. So it's like sacrificing some short-term profit for a potentially bigger win in the long run.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it.
Okay, so that's their BSNL deal. But their CEO, Krithivasan, also mentioned that deal cycles in general are getting longer. So it's not just this one project, right?
No, it seems to be a broader trend.
So why is that? Are clients just being extra cautious with their spending, or is there something else going on?
Well, I think it's a combination of things.
All right.
We talked about those geopolitical tensions and the economic uncertainties.
Yeah.
Those definitely play a role.
Right.
But I also think there's a bit of, dare I say, FOMO going on.
FOMO, fear of missing out.
Exactly.
In what way?
Well, everyone's talking about tech modernization, especially AI.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of companies are worried about being left behind.
So they're hesitant to spend big, but they also don't want to fall behind in the tech race.
Exactly.
So where does TCS fit into all of this?
Well, I think they're trying to position themselves as a steadying hand,
The steadying hand. Okay.
Krithivasan talked a lot about building resilience with their clients.
Resilience. Is that just corporate jargon or is there more to it?
Well, I think it speaks to a larger shift that's happening in how businesses are approaching their client relationships.
How so?
It's less about those traditional, transactional models.
Right, one and done kind of deals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And more about building these collaborative partnerships that are built on trust and shared goals.
So more like a we're in this together kind of approach.
Yeah, exactly. Like a long-term strategic alliance kind of thing.
Interesting. So TCS is betting on building these deeper relationships to weather the current storm and come out stronger on the other side.
Yeah, it's a long game strategy.
It definitely is, but it makes you wonder, with all this talk of economic uncertainty and longer deal cycles, you'd think they'd be cutting back on hiring, but they actually added over 5,700 employees this quarter.
Right.
That's 2 quarters in a row now with positive net headcount additions.
It's true.
So what's the story there? Are they just feeling bullish about the future, or are they just bad at math?
I think it shows a certain level of confidence in their future prospects.
Okay.
They're definitely making investments in their workforce,
Right.
especially in key areas like generative AI, where they see a lot of potential for growth.
And their attrition rate is down to 12.3%.
That's right.
So they're not just hiring your people, they're holding on to their existing talent as well.
Which is huge in this market.
It is,
Yeah.
So it sounds like they're saying, hey, we're not just surviving, we're actually preparing for what's next.
Exactly.
Which kind of brings us to another interesting point. All of their investments in products and platform development,
Right.
they've got, what is it, Ignio?
Ignio, Bay NCS,
Quartz.
Quartz,
Right.
the list goes on.
Yeah, and that's just the beginning. I mean, they've got a whole alphabet soup of tech products.
They really do.
Are these products gaining traction? Are they making money? Or is this just a distraction from their core business?
It's a fair question.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say they've got a pretty diverse portfolio of products and platforms, and they're definitely putting their money where your mouth is when it comes to investing in these areas.
But are they actually seeing a return on those investments?
It seems like it.
Okay, good.
Yeah, take Ignio, for example.
Which is their AI and automation software.
Right. They had 34 new deals for Ignio just this past quarter.
Wow, 34. That's impressive. What's driving that demand?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with all the buzz around generative AI these days.
Right. Everyone's talking about it.
Exactly. And businesses are trying to figure out how to use it to their advantage.
Make them money.
Right, exactly. And TCS is positioning Ignio as a way to do just that.
So it's not just about automating those boring, repetitive tasks anymore, right?
No, it's about using AI to make smarter decisions, optimize processes, really create value.
Right, like next level stuff.
Exactly.
So they're showing businesses how to actually put Ignio to work.
Yeah, they've got all sorts of use cases for different industries.
Okay, and it's not just Ignio. They've also got Bain and CS for financial services, right?
That's right. And they had some new wins and go-lives with that this quarter as well.
Okay, so that's moving along.
And then there's Quartz, their blockchain platform,
Right.
and ION for digital assessment and learning. So
they're not putting all their eggs in one basket, which is probably smart.
definitely a good strategy.
But it does seem like AI is getting most of the attention right now.
Oh, yeah. AI is the hot topic.
From both businesses and investors.
For sure.
And TCS knows that, Krithivasan spent a good chunk of the earnings call talking about AI.
Right. He knows what people want to hear.
He was talking about how they're using AI to analyze millions of customer feedback comments.
Yeah, in over 230 languages.
Over 230 languages. It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it.
It really is. Like, how do you even begin to process that much data?
I have no idea.
It's incredible what they're doing with AI.
Yeah, so AI is clearly a big part of their story.
It's not just some side project for them.
Yeah. Right. It's not just a way to sound cool and trendy.
Exactly. They're weaving it into everything they do.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Well, like their contact center solutions,
Okay.
business process services, cloud modernization, you name it.
So they're using it to enhance all of their offerings.
Good.
It's not just about winning standalone AI projects anymore.
You get it.
It's about using AI to add value to everything they do.
Now you're thinking like a tech analyst.
Well, I try.
But seriously, I think this is actually a really important point because it's not just about TCS.
Okay, what do you mean?
Well, I think this is indicative of a larger trend in the tech industry as a whole.
What? That
Uh,
everybody is trying to figure out how to use AI to actually do something useful?
Yes, exactly. Like AI is moving beyond the hype cycle.
Which was a long cycle.
There's a very long cycle.
Yeah.
But now we're finally starting to see it being used to solve real-world problems.
So companies are figuring out how to make AI actually work for them.
Yeah, and that's creating a ripple effect.
Okay. How so?
Well, as companies like TCS start to show what's possible with AI, it puts pressure on their competitors to keep up.
Oh, right. So it's like a technological arms race,
In a way, yes.
but hopefully a race to the top, right?
That's the idea,
Yeah.
where everyone benefits in the end.
So where does that leave TCS?
Well, I think they're in a good position, but it's not all smooth sailing.
Okay, let's break that down. What are the challenges they're facing?
Well, for starters, there's still a lot of uncertainty in the global economy,
Right.
and they're facing some stiff competition.
Oh, for sure. There's always someone trying to eat your lunch in the tech world.
Always.
Right.
But despite all that, they seem cautiously optimistic about the future.
Cautious optimism. I feel like that's their company motto at this point.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Right. So what are they basing that cautious optimism on?
Well, they're making some pretty big bets, right?
Yeah, we talked about those growth markets.
Right, and their investments in AI.
And they're clearly not afraid to make bold moves. So they're putting their money where their mouth is.
They are, and only time will tell if those bets will pay off.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
So for the average person who's listening to this, what does all of this actually mean? What's the takeaway?
That's a great question, and I think there are a few key things to keep in mind.
Okay, I'm all ears.
First of all, TCS is a company in transition.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, they're trying to navigate a really complex and constantly changing business landscape.
Join the club, right? I mean, isn't everyone these days?
You're right, it's not unique to TCS, but it's still a challenge.
For sure. So what's takeaway number 2?
Well, they're making some calculated risks.
Right, those growth markets, the AI investments, those are big bets.
Exactly, and those bets could pay off big time. But there are no guarantees.
Right, those growth markets might not pan out, or the AI stuff might not deliver the returns they're hoping for.
Exactly.
It's a gamble.
It is, and that's why they're being cautiously optimistic.
Okay, so they're being realistic about the uncertainties.
Yeah, but they're also staying agile and adaptable, ready to change course if they need to.
They're not just along for the ride, they're trying to steer the ship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there are still some storm clouds on the horizon.
Like, what? What are you worried about?
Well, their operating margin is a bit of a concern.
Right, we talked about that.
That BSNL project is putting a squeeze on their profits.
Even though it could be very profitable in the long run.
Right, it's a bit of a double-edged sword.
And then there's the dividend payout.
Oh, right.
They declared another interim dividend of 10 per share.
Which makes investors happy.
It does, but it also makes you wonder if they could be doing more with that cash.
Like reinvesting it in growth areas instead of giving it back to shareholders.
Exactly.
It's a tough call.
It really is.
Because you want to keep investors happy,
Right.
but you also don't want to miss out on opportunities to grow your business.
It's all about finding that balance, right?
Exactly.
But that's why we do what we do.
That's right.
We try to connect the dots, weigh the pros and cons, and make sense of it all.
Because in the world of tech, there are rarely easy answers.
That's for sure, but there's never a dull moment.
That's the truth.
Speaking of which, we haven't even touched on the regulatory landscape.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other can of worms.
Right, with all the changing rules around AI, data privacy, cybersecurity.
It's a lot to keep track of.
It really is. So how big of a factor is that in all of this?
It's a huge factor, actually.
Okay, tell me more.
Well, on one hand, stricter regulations could actually benefit TCS.
Really? How so?
Well, think about it. Those regulations, especially around data privacy, can be expensive and complicated to comply with.
Right.
So it could weed out some of the smaller players who don't have the resources to keep up.
So it plays to TCS's strengths as this big established company.
Exactly. They have the resources and the expertise to navigate those complex regulatory waters.
So it could give them a competitive advantage.
Potentially, yes.
But it's not all good news, right?
Right. Regulations can also create a lot of uncertainty and slow things down.
How so?
Well, they might have to revamp their products or services to comply with the new rules.
Right, which takes time and money.
Exactly.
And then there's always the risk that regulators could overreach, you know,
Oh, absolutely.
and stifle innovation.
That's the worry, right?
Yeah.
Finding that balance between protecting people and allowing businesses to innovate.
It's a tough balance to strike.
It is, and it's something that TCS and really any company operating in the tech space
Yeah.
has to be very mindful of.
So it's a bit of a tightrope walk.
It is.
You're trying to innovate as quickly as possible, but you also have to stay on the right side of the law.
And you never know which way the regulations are going to swing next.
Right. It's like trying to hit a moving target.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a lot to juggle, but that's the reality of operating in the tech world these days.
And it's something that our listeners should keep in mind as they follow TCS's journey. So to wrap up, we've got a company that's making big bets on the future, but also facing some real challenges in the present.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag.
It is. Their success really hinges on their ability to navigate a pretty complex set of factors.
Absolutely.
We've got economic uncertainty, geopolitical risks, rapid technological advancements, evolving regulations.
There's a lot to keep track of.
It really is, and it's a lot to digest, too.
It is, which is why I think it's so important to really dig into these earnings reports.
Okay, so what's your advice for our listeners? What should they be paying attention to?
Well, don't just focus on those top-line numbers, like revenue growth or dividend payouts.
Right, go beyond the headlines.
Exactly. Ask questions, do your own research, and form your own conclusions.
Because there's always more to the story than meets the eye.
Exactly. Like, what's the strategy behind their dividend payout? How will those growth markets perform in the long run? Can they maintain their competitive edge in AI as the technology continues to evolve?
And how will all those regulatory changes affect their business?
These are all important questions to consider.
Because the only thing that's certain in the tech world is change.
That's the truth.
And the companies that can anticipate and adapt to that change are the ones that will thrive.
Absolutely.
It's true, you can't forget about the regulators. They can really shake things up.
Oh, absolutely. And things are changing so fast. It's like they're always trying to catch up.
Right, like they're constantly playing catch up to what's actually happening in the tech world, but they can have a huge impact on these companies.
Huge. Yeah. So it's both good and bad for companies like TCS, you know.
Okay, how so?
Well, like take data privacy. If the regulations get stricter.
Which it seems like they're going to.
Right, exactly. It could actually help weed out some of the smaller players.
Because they can't keep up with all the rules and the costs.
Exactly. It creates a barrier to entry, you know.
Right, so it plays to TCS's advantage because they've got the resources to handle it.
Exactly. They're big enough and they've been around long enough to have those robust systems in place.
So potential competitive advantage for them.
It could be.
Okay, but what's the downside? There's always a downside.
Well, those new regulations can also create uncertainty, you know.
Okay, like how?
Well, it might take them a while to adjust. They might have to revamp their products or services.
Right.
Just to make sure they're compliant. And that takes time and money.
Makes sense.
And then there's always that risk that the regulations could go too far.
Like stifle innovation.
Exactly. And that's a real concern because we don't want to stifle progress.
Right, but at the same time, you have to protect people.
Of course, finding that balance is key.
So TCS is walking this tightrope, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to innovate quickly, but also trying to stay on the right side of the regulators.
That's a great way to put it. It's a tough position to be in.
It is, and it makes you wonder, like, how do you even plan for that? You're trying to hit a moving target.
Exactly. You have to be adaptable. You have to be able to pivot quickly.
And you have to be able to anticipate what's coming next.
Which is not easy.
No, it's not.
But that's the name of the game in the tech world.
It is, and it's definitely something for our listeners to keep in mind as they follow TCS's journey. It's not just about the technology.
Right. It's about so much more than that.
It's about navigating all of these external factors.
The political landscape, the regulatory landscape.
The economic landscape.
It's a lot.
It is. So, to sum it all up, we've got TCS, a company that's clearly making some big bets on the future.
They are. They're not afraid to take risks.
No, they're not, but they're also facing some very real challenges in the present.
Like everyone else.
True. And their success is going to depend on how well they're able to navigate this really complex web of factors: economic uncertainty, geopolitical risks, rapid technological advancements, and of course, those ever-changing regulations.
Don't forget the regulations.
It's a lot to keep track of, but that's why we do what we do, right? To help make sense of it all.
Exactly. We try to connect the dots for people, provide some context and analysis.
Because it can be overwhelming, even for those of us who follow this stuff every day.
Oh, for sure.
So if you're listening to this and your head is spinning, don't worry, you're not alone.
It's complicated stuff.
It is, but it's also incredibly fascinating. And I think the key takeaway here is that there are no easy answers.
There rarely are in the world of tech.
No, there aren't, but there's never a dull moment either.
That's for sure. And that's what makes it so exciting.
It does. So to our listeners, Keep those brains buzzing. Keep asking those insightful questions.
And don't be afraid to dig a little deeper. Sometimes the most valuable insights come from exploring the nuances.
Absolutely. Until next time, keep exploring, and remember, the only constant is change.
That's the truth.